During the recording of the first Vinnie Vincent album, is Robert Fleischman hanging out at the studio while you're there?
Nope, not really. Robert was probably the one out of the gate at the audition that I felt like I had the immediate kinship with. I just felt the biggest connection. Like he went over, we talked afterwards. I don't know what it was. It just, I mean, Dana and Vinnie were cool as well, of course, but I felt like Robert and I really hit it off at the audition. And then when we came back to, do the record, I mean, he would drop in here and there. And then when I was back in Houston when he was doing most of his vocal parts, I just didn't really see much of Robert at all. We talked here and there, and then literally we saw each other at the photo session for the record, But what I didn't know then that I was starting to kind of pick up on throughout the drum sessions, I would hear. I know there was something going on between Vinnie and Robert. And I thought Robert was a shoo-in. It was a done deal. He was going to be in the thing. There was no question. But I think he had other thoughts about it. What I came to find out later was when they did the original, the big three, meaning Boys Are Gonna Rock, Shoot You Full of Love, No Substitute, which wound up being the first three songs on the record. Robert sang on those demos, and Vinnie took the tape shopping, and Robert apparently was under the impression that this was going to be like a band thing, a joint thing between the two guys. That was somehow lost in translation. Next thing you know, Vinnie Vincent gets a Vinnie Vincent deal. My impression, I can't say 100%, but my impression was that maybe that's what rubbed Robert the wrong way, And so he did agree to do the record, but I just always thought he was kind of half in, half out, and wasn't really interested in fully embracing it. And the other thing is, he had his own thing going on in L.A. He was writing songs, and he had a family and sort of lived at a different level than I was, and most other L.A. musicians were. So I don't know that he would have been a candidate to jump out, for example, on an Alice Cooper tour, for that kind of money and, that sort of baby band kind of conditions. And he'd done that thing with Journey for a hot second. He just had been around a lot more. So I don't know that he would have been agreeable to a lot of the shit that we would have had to do the first year. So put all that in a pot, and next thing you know, he wasn't going to last much beyond the photo shoot for the record.
He was gone before the album was even released, right?
It either wasn't released or it was about to, or it had just been, it was right around that time.
Okay.
It was right around that time, because I just remember it being like this sort of catastrophic thing. I mean, certainly the artwork, the photo, everything else was, the button had been pushed. And so I was back in Houston when I got the news, Robert is not going to be joining us. We have to find a new singer.
I mean, it just seems crazy to do the whole record, lay down the tracks, do the photos, and then bail before the tour. I mean, do you think he was never planning to do the tour?
No, actually, what I should probably mention as the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back is I think they had enough discussion to where Robert was like, he was kind of taking it a step at a time. And I think he was open to the idea of doing some shows. I mean, certainly when I talked to him at the audition, that was the vibe. So yes, I think his intention was he was treading carefully, but he was kind of taking a step at a time. First he did the record, then he did the photos, and I think he was agreeable to doing it. But the actual straw was our manager, George Sewitt, was really Vinnie's manager, but he wanted to get contracts on all of us, in the personal management contracts on everybody in the band, including Robert. And Robert was not going to have it. Robert was not willing to sign with George. I think Robert, I don't know all the reasons, but I can only imagine Robert was an established guy. He had probably multiple streams of income from his publishing endeavors and who knows what else. And he wasn't just like this token thing. Okay, well, this guy wants me to sign it. I guess I better sign the contract. He wasn't going to do it. And I think when George, my impression was that it was like, look, you got to sign this contract if you want to be in the band, meaning that George wasn't willing to move forward with the Vinnie Vincent Invasion, with him managing the band without having paperwork on everybody in the band. When that became somewhat of an ultimatum, boom, that's when Robert bailed.
And so you get the call, Robert's out, Mark's in. So at what point do you actually meet Mark Slaughter?
We were set up to rehearse at the same facility where I auditioned. It was SIR off of Santa Monica. And he was going to meet us there because we were going to start initial rehearsals for the Alice Cooper tour. And also we were going to do the Boys Gonna Rock video. And so I just met him at the rehearsal hall. And as it turns out, there was an apartment that Dana, or I should say the label or whatever, had kind of sublet for us out-of-towners. And this is where I initially was staying. So Mark was going to stay there also. So we became instantaneous roommates. He came out from Vegas. I was out from Houston. And that was it, man. He came out. Immediately, great vibe, great. I don't know if you know Mark or not, but he's just, he's what you see is what you get, man. Just super cool, super friendly guy. We bonded immediately, and we became roomies right then and there, as it would be on tour and for the rest of the thing.
And then, so shortly after you do the video?
Yeah, the video was one of the very first things we did. At that point, Mark always had a guitar in his hand when he sang. Some of the projects in his own band and things he was doing prior to the Invasion was always him as a guitar player who sang lead vocals. So when you see that footage of Mark Slaughter in Boys Gonna Rock video, that's the first time he is performing as a lead vocalist with just a mic without a guitar on. That's literally the first time he's doing it.
Before the interview, I ran across a video where it looked like it was maybe some behind the scenes from that video shoot. He did look pretty nervous in that.
Yes, that footage, I remember that footage has been around. It was obviously shot while we were doing it. I don't know, I forget who was shooting it or how the footage got out or whatever, but yes, I have seen bits and pieces of that from that infamous first shoot. And I mean, look, he was, I think he's a year younger than me, man. So yeah, I mean, you could imagine this kid coming out from Vegas having to be a lead singer for this whole new thing with the record done. And it was like, he's going to come out, we're going to shoot a video, we're going to go into rehearsals, we're heading out with Alice Cooper. So you could imagine, man.
Right. And so any idea just how long by the end of it that album took to record? Like all your 3 trips and all that?
Yeah, so well, put it this way. I mean, look, it was November of 85 that we started on it. And the record came out like, August something of 80, the next year. So, but you got to figure that 9 months from when we started to when it was released, but you got to figure that sometime like late spring or early summer, the record was in the can. And I'll tell you, speaking of Sweet Savage, I remember I was sitting back in Houston for all these months while they were doing the vocals and they were doing the mixes and all this shit. And I'm like, Holmes, I was talking to Dana, just send me something. Just burn me a cassette. I was just dying to hear it. Cool, bro. And he never sent shit. And then finally, like with the record's done, it's mixed, probably even mastered, and he has to come out to Houston for this big Sweet Savage showcase thing or something that was going on in Houston. So I went to go pick Dana up at the airport, and now this motherfucker is getting in the van. He's got to play something for me, and he knew it, And so that was going to be the first time I heard anything. And I'll never forget that, because of course what he knew that I would later come to know was that the drums were relative to, like in the mix, they were pretty buried, which of course is the biggest irony of the whole story here is that at the end of the day, the drums were really pretty buried in the mix. The guitars were just cranked, and the drums actually sounded kind of on the small side, which was a tragedy based on what they actually sounded like raw in the studio after we initially tracked them, But anyway, Dana knew that. Dana figured I was going to freak, so he cues up that song Twisted. That was the first song he played for me, which starts out with the drums. He plays that for me first. He cranks the shit up, like painfully loud, and plays me that track first. So I'd go, oh, wow, cool. Oh, the drums sound great. He kind of pre-framed me by playing that song. I'm thinking, like, what the fuck you fast forward to play that for? Let's hear from the start, But that was what I remembered. He played me Twisted first, and then we listened to the rest of it. And of course, as I continued to hear it on different systems and things like that, I started going like, wow, man, this isn't exactly the drum sound I was hoping for. But nonetheless, I was thrilled. I mean, this was my first major release and all of that.
So by the end of it, you're pretty proud of the result?
Largely, yes. I mean, largely, yes. I would say back then. In retrospect, through the years, as much as I love both those records, mainly for the songs, and I even like all the crazy guitar shit and the guitar tones. I like both Robert and Mark on their respective records. All of that. The drums remain my least favorite part of both those records, just for a variety of reasons. But that's all I can tell you. And what can I tell you? I'm glad that was an important part of my career, and I'm glad I played on those records and all of that. But all things considered, you always think about what could have been. You know what I mean? The best way to really understand that is to listen to drums on All Systems Go, and then listen to drums on the first Slaughter record. Of course, there's a different technological type of an approach that they did on the Slaughter record. But the point is, that was Dana Strum,
being free.
Unleashed. Dana Strum could go in and do a record the way he wanted to do it, with the sounds the way he wanted to do it, with the drums the way he wanted to do it, all of that. Just a couple short years later, after All Systems Go came out. So the idea is that I think, and of course he continued to expand and become a better producer as well. But the point I'm making is that I think in the Vinnie Vincent circle, with co-producing with Vinnie and sort of like the protocol he had to follow and all of that, and there it is, man. So then after when he's able to do the Slaughter records, like, oh, you know what, fuck it, here's how we're gonna do this now.